Hey, he's Ron and I'm Don.
And this is the Ron and Don Show. Thanks for joining us today.
That's what we're in.
That's who we are.
Okay.
That's where we are. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about what we've loosely categorized as the wonder years. Let's start with Barcelona, Spain. I was once asked to take a project.
Wait, we're going to go international right off the bat?
Why not?
That leaves
Go
me in
big.
the dust.
Go big. Go big. Go big and then go home. Barcelona, Spain. I was once asked by a chain restaurant brand to go to their Barcelona location and do a renovation to their front of the house area. Well, thinking through the process, I decided to reach out to some others in the international market and ask for some references for smaller contractors and trades that I needed to perform the services. Ultimately, I ended up hiring some folks out of Venice, Italy to come over to Barcelona. And by the way, for the geographically challenged as I was before I ran this project, at least in that market, the distance between Barcelona, Spain and Venice, Italy is about the difference between going from Miami to Atlanta. It's really not that far, and we think nothing of it here in the U.S. between moving trades between states or across state lines to do work. So I thought it would be very appropriate to do so at the Barcelona project. Unfortunately, what I didn't know is there was a cultural clash by having Italians come in and work in a Spanish restaurant. And it created some real challenges and led to some bruised egos, perhaps is the nicest way of saying it. So I learned that working in international markets, it's important, very important to make sure you understand the dynamics of the culture before you go charging in there and doing things the way you might be inclined to do in the U.S.
Now, you oftentimes talk very, very sedate. Did you learn any sign language with your hands or anything while you're doing all that?
No, I'm not going into that. We're not going to do that.
Okay. Well, I have had some experiences where I had to put in some new equipment in a restaurant between walls. And this is early this is all custom-made equipment. It was early in the days when I was trying to build this stuff. And I measured it several times, all corners, all the way around, everything. I had everything laid out perfectly. Sent it off to the manufacturer. I left myself a 1/4 inch slot just to be able to get this stuff in there. And my contractors measured it, everybody measured it. We all knew exactly what was going to happen. We had the drains figured out in the floor so we didn't have a leg over it. We had the electrical all positioned, plumbing, everything was right. Until we pulled out the existing counter and found out that there was a 1.5 inch bow in one of the end walls that was hidden. Well, nothing was going to fit that way. We had to end up by putting in the 2 end pieces, go out and get a screw jack, lay it on the floor with some 2x4s between the legs, and then another set of 2x4s down to the next set of legs so we didn't break the legs off, and jack the 2 cabinets apart to squeeze that wall back together, set the new cabinet in the middle, and let the jack go. The amazing part about it, that was the tightest fit seams I've ever had and never had to do any welding on that one. But all the measuring in the world doesn't always solve it.
It'd be interesting to see if the next generation of facilities managers, when that has to be changed again, will encounter the same problem. I wouldn't want to be there to try and take that out. It sounds like a tight squeeze.
They'll probably have to cut it up to get it out.
Well, I've got another story for you. I was once asked to look at a laundry list of things at a restaurant one time, and one of the items was a cracked tile in the ladies' room. And I went in there before business hours and made my notes and took my photos, and the more I studied that broken tile, the more I realized it was broken because there was a circular hole right in the center of it. And I began to look a little deeper and noticed that not only was the tile broken, but the wall behind it had that same circular pattern, as did, I then discovered, the outside wall. Ultimately, I realized that that was a bullet hole inside the ladies' room wall. And I brought that to the attention of the general manager and probably should have been a little more discreet in the way I did so, because ultimately it caused a little bit of panic amongst the crew when the conversation was being had about what ultimately turned out to be a drive-by shooting. So
when that happened, was that a men's room or women's room?
it was a ladies' room.
Well, I hope there was, where was it in the ladies' room?
It was on a lower wainscoting wall, tile wall.
around the toilets or commodes?
No, I don't think so. I think it was in the common area.
I bet if somebody was in there, that was a little bit exciting.
Yeah, I can't imagine the backstory on that one.
Well, a number of years ago, I had a restaurant that we were going to do an expansion. And the contractor rolled up in their brand new truck and fifth wheel. And everything in that fifth wheel trailer was brand new. And he was all ready to get started. You know what? He went in to have lunch and he came out, and unfortunately, all that was stolen. He got in the habit of locking, then from then on, all the fifth wheel and the truck and everything to the local trees. Had the similar thing happen in another restaurant. We got a brand new dish machine delivered to be installed, and the installing contractor chose not to do it that first night, and operations didn't really understand that we needed to bring that dish machine in overnight, so they didn't bring it in overnight. And then it was set out the next day, and sometime around 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that brand new Hobart C44 dish machine got picked up and was somebody else's property. That was not fun because that old machine was not making it anymore. So sometimes you gotta lock it or lose it.
Talking about Hobart C44 machines, I recall a time when we were asked to go into a restaurant and renovate the dish ring area and install a new dish machine. And when the old machine came out and was put behind the building into the area where the scrap materials were going, the facility manager directed that we should have that machine scrapped. It should go to the scrap yard. So we sent it to the scrap yard, and then about 6 hours later got a call from the finance team who said, "Where's that machine?" We said, "It's gone." And it turned out that machine was a leased machine. So my motto on that is never scrap what is not yours.
Sometimes when you're doing work, particularly plumbing work at night, you can get with the plumber, going to put in new sewer lines because the old lines are all eaten up and chewed through by all the acids and chemicals we put in the lines. But unfortunately, we make our list of materials that we're going to need, but we may forget a few details. And the devil is there in those details. I had one situation where the plumber showed up that night and his wheelbarrows, both tires were virtually flat. Have you ever pushed a wheelbarrow full of gravel with almost flat tires? It is very difficult to push them. And one of the handles was half broken off. We struggled that whole night moving materials in and out of the restaurant with those wheelbarrows. So making sure the tools are taken care of are part of your devils in the detail you need to formulate with your contractors before they show up.
I'm going to call my next one plans and specifications. We one time made the mistake of using a set of blueprints and the specifications to do a takeoff on a front of the house retile that we were doing in a restaurant in fact in Waikiki. And ultimately what we discovered to our own demise was the fact that the plans had nothing to do with reality with regard to the booths and the amount of square footage of floor tile that we needed to do the project. And I mentioned Waikiki because it's important to note that you don't just run down to the local tile supplier in Waikiki and order another 300 square feet of tile. All of that has to be shipped in, and in this case it had to be shipped in all the way from Spain. So ultimately we learned that you can never do and trust a takeoff off a set of blueprints. You need to get out on site and inspect what you're looking at.
Well, in that same vein, tiles often are taken out of production.
Yes.
How many times have we had relatively new restaurants where we need to replace some broken tiles 2 years later and you couldn't get them?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Making sure that your design people know when they're specifying something, whether or not that's going to be in production for a while yet, or if that is a phased out model over the next couple of years, and maybe even bringing in a stock of a couple of cases just so you have them. I had a rather bad situation with some installation of custom equipment again on a holiday weekend, and we were actually going to close that particular restaurant for that, and I hate to close a restaurant for anything, but they were going to lose money because this particular restaurant lost money on on the 4th of July weekend. Everybody was up at the lake or barbecuing in their backyard and all that kind of stuff. So the staff loved having the weekend off, and we were going to work around the clock. We got ready to go into the restaurant because everything was delivered on the morning of the 4th of July, and no one had left us the keys or the codes. This was in the Chicago area, and I contacted the executive chef, and he was on the tee in a golf course in Michigan. We're all there, we got all the materials there, we got all the contractors there, and we got no way to get into the space. Fortunately, another manager was able to be rousted out of bed and get down there in about an hour and a half. We were able to get in, but again, the details, making sure you got everything covered, because that executive chef says, okay, I got 3 days off, I'm gonna go have some fun over with my family in Michigan. That was not gonna be a quick return.
Keys and codes.
Keys
That's
and
what I heard
codes.
there. I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
Thanks for joining us today. Please subscribe.